The restaurants that win aren't necessarily the ones that have the flashiest menu or the nicest environment. In my opinion, they're the ones that use data to make better decisions. They're the ones that are going to grow faster because they're going to be able to identify their problem areas, and they're going to be able to identify their opportunities, the opportunities that they can exploit. And if you want to be an effective operator, being a little bit of a data wonk is not a bad thing.
Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator podcast. I am your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit location owner for almost 20 years. And now we help restaurant owners increase their sales, their profits, and have more freedom with their time. We've got a very special guest on here, Russ Hawkins, who is going to tell us a lot of stuff that you need to know to make your restaurant better, more profitable, and basically how to use the things that honestly most restaurant owners aren't using to actually improve their operations. So let's dive in. There's a key word, Russ, that we talked about right before the show is data. Now, I'm coming from a restaurant owner background, starting from 1, going up to 4, and data just sounds so, I don't know, kind of vague, like it's one of those tech words, but I mean, in your experience, data can mean a lot of things. So why don't you walk us through a little bit more about your experience and what data means to you and how it actually interacts with our restaurant operations and what we can use it for?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. I will. My background and my company is all about data and all about using it to make better decisions on a daily basis. You mentioned that you started with one store and one location and moved up to 4. One of the things I like to say is that, well, if you have to be in more than one place at a time, then you need kind of my products. You need to do analytics, and you need to be able to understand what's happening in that other location. If you're a single location proprietor, you can keep your eye. You can't necessarily you can't be there all the time, but you can keep your eye on things, and you can work a lot based on your observations and experiences and your gut, right? But once you get to multiple locations, you really need to start gathering the data that is being generated by these businesses. So what kind of data am I talking about? Well, first and foremost, the transaction data, the POS data. Most systems today provide you with some kind of record of what was sold. You can, again, depending upon the system that you've got, you can organize that data in a lot of different ways. Worst cases, you can download it into a spreadsheet and then sort it by various things. Things like time of day parts, those kinds of things, items that are sold, covers by day part, drinks per shift, apps per shift, desserts per shift, tip management. There's all kinds of data that can come out of the POS system. In addition to that, demographic information about where the location is. In today's world, with the growth of third-party ordering and delivery applications, there's another whole set of data that comes from those things. And this is no longer a sideline, right? This is used to be that takeout was a sideline for physical operators. Today, it's part of the business. You got to be able to handle that.
Yeah. And even in COVID, for me, like I found for my restaurants, we actually were seeing in some cases 50 to 60% of our entire volume coming from third-party delivery, from takeout, from our catering and delivery and stuff like that. It just became such a massive part of the business that you just can't ignore it, and you can't stick your head in the sand either. But how can we use the data that we're getting from that to actually benefit us?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a wide variety of data that's made available by these third parties. Some of them are hold it very close. Others make it generally available. Human resources information, data, the people that are working for you, how long they've been in the job, what their performance has been.
So one of the things, actually, let's stop there for a second. Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point, because I ask my clients this sometimes. I'm like, what your actual employee churn numbers are, like what your turnover is per year or per 6 month. And most, that's a piece that nobody ever tracks. They don't actually know that. And if you're flipping your staff twice in a year, that's a lot of training dollars that go out the door. I mean, that's a key piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keeping satisfied team members and reducing that turnover can have a dramatic impact on your profitability. Menu items, what are your menu items and what are your ingredients? And there's an awful lot that you can glean out of that from a profitability standpoint by understanding how those things move through your business from the receiving door out through the tables. So that's what I mean when I talk about data. I'm talking about those kinds of things. Oh, the other one is promotions. So yeah, we didn't talk about that. Yeah. Understanding promotions, and if you've got a loyalty system, sometimes today these are included in the POS systems that are available. But whatever kind of promotions you operate, most of the time, what I've seen is people operate on gut level. They say, well, I'm gonna have a loss leader, or I'm gonna have this product that's, and the objective, at least in the planning and that part of it, is that it's going to have an impact on your actual sales. But do you go back and look at what the impact was and compare it to prior periods? So, from my perspective, what's important is that you build a database. You build a historic database. You make it available to yourself. If you've got key management employees that are with you, you get them to be involved in it. But building it up over time, so you've got the whole calendar cycle. How holidays perform. What happened last year, what happened last month, what happened yesterday. These are all things that can help inform you with the decisions that you need to make today.
Absolutely. And it's so funny that you're talking about this, because as we're filming this, we are now mid-September. This will probably air sometime in October. But as we're filming this, just with our client base, it's just so interesting because so many of our clients have come to us and said, hey, my sales have gone down. And the first question we ask is, okay, well, let's gone down in comparison to what? Right? And they say, oh, gone down in comparison to the weeks previous or what we were doing in the summer. And so then we say, okay, well, does September normally go down after Labor Day? And then we go back into the data, and sure enough, it does go down after Labor Day. And I'm like, oh, okay. And how are you comparing to last year? Oh, well, we're actually up 10% over the previous year. And so I'm like, well, then you're actually doing good. And so it went from a comparison of, oh my God, like my operating account has dropped because my sales have went down. But it's getting people to understand. And so let me just kind of take it back to my story. So I started out, my very first location was in a university market or a college town, for example. So basically what we did there is every September, students would come in and they would be there for 8 months of the year. And then we would have our really busy summer period, which was great because we were in a downtown market. But what was just so interesting about it is that staffing was always a challenge because I would have staff for about 8 months and then they would leave. And then, so here's the thing. Every August, because university started in September, where I'm at, so everyone went back to school just after Labor Day. That was kind of when everything started up in my area. So about 2 weeks before that, 2 to 3 weeks before, we would always have all these 2-week notices come in. Oh, I'm not going to work during school. Even if I have asked people when we hired them, like, hey, are you going to work during the school year? They all said, yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, they were like, well, I changed my mind. And so we would always have that. And I like to think I'm a reasonably smart human being. And guess how long it took me to recognize that pattern? It took me almost 10 years. I kid you not. I like to think I'm smart. It took me 10 years
you're a trusting
to figure
person,
out.
Right? You're trusting what people are telling you, and what's the old word? Trust but verify. So
exactly.
Use the data to make sure that what your beliefs are actually backed up by
are actually true. Yeah. And the thing is, at that period of time, it was like, here's what it felt like. And I tell this to my clients all the time. It feels like you're in the middle of a storm, like this big wave is hitting you and crashing into you, and you're thrown from one end, and then a wave hits you from the other end, and you're just feeling like you're on a small little boat in the middle of a hurricane. And our whole goal is to take you from being in that boat with all these waves happening around you and crashing from side to side. Well, how do we put you in a helicopter or an airplane and go above that whole storm so you can see the whole thing? And the reason why I say this is because eventually, after years of having all of these notices, and then that would end up with me working 100-hour weeks and trying to hire more people and get them trained up. So it meant every September, I would either have to limit my hours, or my service was bad, or we were getting complaints. It was just always bad. And I realized after 10 years that, hey, I probably need to start hiring in advance of when I need people in order to have the staffing during this period so I don't get sucked back into the business, because the same thing happened in April when everyone was leaving after their exams were done and stuff like that. So I had to figure out, okay, there's these 2 times a year where I get sucked back into the business because I lose staff, and then I can't focus on marketing. I can't focus on my numbers. I can't focus on anything else but surviving. And so it takes me usually 6 weeks to fix it. So that's 3 months out of the year that I'm doing nothing but surviving. So how the hell can I grow a business when a quarter or a third of the year I'm just in survival mode? And so what happened was, now that I understood my patterns, and so again took the data and actually put it to good use, finally after 10 years, was able to say, okay, I should probably, knowing this happens, I should probably do something to change it. And so once I did that, I looked at my business from a 12-month perspective, and so that I know, here's my trend in October, here's my trend in December, I know what's going to happen. And so I take the previous year's data, I take our existing trends, I can forecast out my budgeting, I can forecast out my sales projections. You can take the data and use it appropriately, and that will just allow your business to be on such a different level where when something is coming, you can prepare for it.
Absolutely.
And so many owners don't. They just get hit and they're like,
they're playing the seat of the pants. You can't do the seat of the pants. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
People that are operating on the seat of the pants are not going to be the ones that are growing fastest in the market. So let me ask you a question
not.
on your second and third and fourth location. Were they also university and downtown areas, or were they different?
No, those were different. So actually then we moved into more of a suburban market.
Yep.
And part of the reason why is, I'll just be totally honest, we were open till 4 a.m. and we served the after bar crowd, and I was getting too old for that. I didn't want to be up until 4 a.m. anymore. So I'm like, all right, we gotta change some things. But we had some good suburban locations. We closed at 11. I thought myself at the time, I'm like, man, I only have to work until 11:30 at night. This is a dream. But eventually, of course, I was able to slim down my workload, so I actually didn't work in the businesses anymore. But I was like, worst case scenario, going home at 11:30 sounds like a dream after having worked until 4 a.m. for so many years. But
your trends are different, right? Everything that, I mean,
absolutely.
Your hiring was different. Everything about it was different. So that's why the reason I asked is because I think understanding the location and where you sit in the community, who your customer base is. Another thing I like to say is, know what you're selling and know who you're selling it to, and then create an environment where it makes it easy for them to take advantage of your offerings. And
absolutely.
And it varies widely by the demographics, by where you sit. And so 100%. each one of these restaurants would potentially have a different set of metrics and a different set of performance and a different set of comparison to prior periods, right? So but you can imagine how, well, you have had the experience. It gets much more complicated as you are in multiple locations, so.
Well, I mean, because then planning becomes everything. Because if you don't plan, I mean, even down to, we'll give you a perfect example. So I had my managers. So this is when I had 4 locations, and the managers I had at each one of them, I could count it like clockwork, even though, because I knew the patterns, and I said, hey guys, we need to hire in August. And we need to get ahead of it because hiring is a lot harder after that, because there's a dip in the labor market because people are going back to school. And then those who are then changing, they basically haven't settled in enough to their school schedule that they're out looking for jobs. So it usually took about 6 weeks before things really turned around. And you might be saying, well, I don't hire students. I mean, that's true. But the entire labor market, like if you look every time September comes around or April or May or whatnot, Walmart's going to be hiring, the grocery stores are going to be hiring, everybody's going to be hiring,
yeah.
And so the whole labor market for these rough wage points are experiencing it. So the whole point was I would tell my managers, hey, Now's the time to hire. How many interviews did you do? And then sure enough, one of my managers wouldn't have done it as much as they should because they're like, oh, I'm good. I have enough staff. And so they ignored the data from previous years. So bringing data back into this picture. And then it was like clockwork that someone would email me or call me in tears or angry and giving me a bunch because people would have quit and then they had to cover the schedule. And so every September this would happen, even though we had the data and we showed it to them. So you also have to listen and take action on the data as well. You can't just have it and then not utilize it. So, I mean, having it's step number one, but then you got to do something about it too.
Absolutely. And there's a number of different ways that you can use data. So I like to think of it in 5 categories. The first one is how do you increase sales, right? So
perfect.
a couple things that I've seen there. And first is monitoring the upsell performance of your team. So, how many checks had that upsell? Did they get that dessert done? How many times were they able to suggest an additional appetizer or some other way of boosting the value of that check? And getting it down to the server level, right? Each server, what was your performance? How did they do it? I heard a story one time about this was in a table service environment where this one server didn't sell anywhere near the amount of wine. This was a restaurant that served alcohol. When you looked at the performance of wine for this one server compared with everyone else, it was very low. And eventually the manager came over and said, why do you think this is? And it turned out that it was a training issue. The person was uncomfortable with opening the bottle of wine at the table. They were uncomfortable with using a corkscrew. And so it was a very simple fix to a problem that eventually improved the performance of that individual. If you're in a QSR environment or in a fast casual environment, it's very fast paced. You want to sell that dessert to take home, or if you're for your bagel store or something like that, you're buying lunch today, but get a bagel for tomorrow morning. Monitoring that stuff and using it as a training tool for the performance of your frontline, and we're touching on 2 things here: increasing sales and improving the performance of your frontline people. So that's the 2 of the 5.
You're speaking my language here, because I literally talked about this the other day at one of my client calls. So what we talked about was upselling, because at the end of the day, let's say you have 100 customers come in and you can add $2 to each of those checks. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars at the end of the year. And that's just a very small increase in a small number of customers. So that speaks volumes. Now, here's one of the things is I ask all of my clients, I'm like, hey, when's the last time you actually ran your server metrics? Look, just the average ticket per server. When's the last time you did that? And put it on the board. And who was the best? Who was the worst? Why was that person the best? And also, here's a question. Who do you want on your busiest shifts? Who do you want running those busy Friday nights? Or if you're a QSR, maybe a Friday lunch, who do you want running your cash register versus another person? Who do you want? You want the best person that's going to be doing that job, right? So it's so crucial to have that kind of data. And here's a quick tip that I will give to you. If you are in either a full service or a quick service, one of the best things we ever found is in our company, cookies were a side item that you could get. Again, just think sandwich shop, right? So a quick service sandwich shop, people come in. If we didn't ask about their loyalty program, because we had a really hard time getting people to join our loyalty program at first. And a lot of it was that our team members are like, well, I don't want to ask because then they're going to have questions and then maybe I'm going to have to show them how to use it, or maybe there's a whole bunch of stuff. And so here's what we did. We put a little piece of paper, we laminated it, but we printed this sign that said, if we don't ask you about our rewards card, you get a free cookie. And we put that in front of our cash register. Now, originally I thought to myself, because I was like, well, I don't want to give away free cookies, and why is that going to be a disincentive for stuff? But here's what actually happened. We actually didn't give away that many free cookies. And what happened was the people that were running the cash register, they asked every single person, because the one time they forgot, The customer then said, ha ha, you have to give me a free cookie, and actually made them. And it was actually more work to go and get the cookie and bag it up and give it to them and have someone make fun of them. That proved as a disincentive. It was more work to do that versus asking. And so we just made it a natural, like a self-reinforcing thing. And that totally changed it. And you could do that for gift cards during the holidays. You could do that for upsells. You can do that for whatever. And in a table service environment, you could do the same thing because everyone has table tents or there's things like that you have every time. So there's ways you can do that as well. Hey, if we don't offer you dessert, you're going to get a coupon for dessert next time or whatever it is.
Right.
And
right.
so there's ways that you can do this. So I just take that little piece of it just from upselling. But honestly, the amount of people that are not upselling the way that they should, and they're losing out on tens of thousands of dollars in bottom line profit every year is astounding to me. Just because we don't train, we don't do our pre-shift huddles, we don't role play it enough. It's just not a part of our thing. And servers view themselves as order takers and not experience makers, which is what they should be. And so,
exactly right.
I mean, that's just like, I'm just trying to, sorry, I know we're going on about this, but here's
that's
the perfect example.
I think it's very important. I mean, we see this all the time, and upsells is one of the most important things that we talk to our customers about.
Hey, it's Andrew here. Just taking a quick 20-second break to share something important. Did you know that you can master your restaurant's numbers in just 5 minutes per week? I created a free, no-fluff 7-minute training where I show you exactly what numbers you must track, where you're bleeding money, and I give you the exact tool we use with our clients to do it. Grab your free copy by clicking the link in the description below. Well, and going one step further, I think that every menu item should have an upsell, to be honest. I think, or at least most of them. So I'll give you a perfect example of this. I went out for dinner with some friends who were in town, and we went out to a nice lunch, it's like late lunch or whatnot, and one of the guys gets a poke bowl, and the server asks, "Oh, did you want avocado on that?" And he's like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so boom, $3, right? And then so what the guy asked me, because I ordered, it was a chicken burger or something along those lines, and he was like, "Hey, so did you want sweet potato fries or did you want Parmesan truffle fries?" And the way he said it, I was like, "Hell yeah, I want Parmesan truffle fries." Both of those were an upsell. He didn't just say, "Did you want just the regular fries with that?" Because that leads people to say yes. But instead, he offered me an A or B option. And of course, the Parmesan truffle fries were $7 more. So bang, there's another $7. And we're talking about 2 of the 4 of us. All of a sudden, there's an extra $10 in sales from that, right? So it just makes a monumental
everybody's happy. The other thing is everybody's happy. The owner's happy. The server's happy because they're going to have a larger check and ostensibly get a larger tip, and the patron is happy because they're getting a better experience. So it's a win-win-win all the way around.
Those were damn good fries. So I wanted to point that out because so many people are sleeping on this, and even when it comes to menu design, I was actually I was out west, and there was another place we went to, and almost every menu item had their colors were red. And so the menu was white and it had black writing, but then under almost every menu item, it just had a little red line that says staff secret. Let's say it was a steak. It was like, add mushrooms to your steak for $1.99. Like just every little thing just had a little note beside it. I'm like, what? And the server should be pouncing on that every time. It should just be an automatic question that comes up. And by doing that, you can get a 10 to 15% lift in your check, depending on the size of things. So
that's right, and you can use it as a training tool, right? You take all that data, and you have a huddle with the team, and you have an individual that is performing extremely well. You can basically say, look what a great job this guy's doing, and they're going to reinforce it as well because they're going to be making more money, and that's what everybody wants to
100%.
do, right? And so it's a self-reinforcing benefit. There's no question about it, and it all comes back to what we talked about at first, which was gathering the data. Make sure you gather the data, analyze it, and then use it with your team, and everything will be better. Another area is in promotion effectiveness, right? I mean, the number of times that I've seen companies, they have either a seasonal promotion, some kind of limited time offer, or something like that, and they're intuitive about it, right? They're like, well, this will drive volume. And so they're making, a pre-assumption about what it will actually do, and of course you're getting a lot less margin usually on that limited time offer. And so, what was the real impact on margin? Did you in fact comparing kind of like period to like period with and without the limited time offer. What was the actual bottom line aggregated value to that? And was it in fact a benefit? Because a lot of these things are done kind of, again, depending upon the size of the company, either by the individual, the owner of the business, or by some marketing or merchandising person that's designing a program. They're in charge of designing programs, and those kinds of things. So it's the same kind of thing.
I mean, that's a crucial one from a promotions perspective. 'Cause, well, here's what I find: a lot of folks that we work with, when they start to work with us, they actually don't measure their ROI at all on anything that they do, right? They don't actually go back and say, hey, so we did this thing. Did it do the thing that we wanted it to do, right? Or another one, people are coming out with promotions just haphazardly, we'll put it that way, and they're saying, hey, well, let's run a 2-for-1 special next week. And then they come back and wonder why it didn't generate any volume. So one of the things I always tell people, I mean, you could give away stuff all day for free, but if no one knows about it, it's not going to matter. So you need to use the data to know how well, not only did the promotion do, but how well did each marketing channel do? And did it drive what you wanted it to? Did it actually get you more? Because here's the other thing too. It's possible to be busy and have more customers come in because of it, but you could still not make any profit. And if you're not making profit, then what's the point?
What's the point?
So,
exactly.
And it's having these types of conversations, because so many restaurant owners that we talk to, they're like, I'm a restaurant owner, I'm an operator, like, yeah, of course we have to do these promotions and we have to do these things. But the reality is you're a business owner and you need to have your business owner hat on when you're making decisions. And so many people, like you mentioned, are flying by the seat of their pants. And when you switch your mind to actually look at the financial side, you realize that a lot of the things you're doing don't really make a whole lot of sense.
And therefore you don't have to do them, right? You don't have to do them just because you've always done them, right?
Exactly.
And by the way, this kind of bleeds over into the third-party ordering and delivery services, right? Because you can custom your offers based on the delivery method or the vendor that you're using, and you can evaluate the effectiveness of the third-party delivery companies too. If you're using multiple of them, and you get more complaints from one of the services because they didn't deliver on time or was cold, and whatever the reason might be, then you can start making intelligent decisions about which of these services you use and don't use, or that you offer your customers. If you want to direct your customers toward one versus the other,
to one or another. Well, what's so interesting too, this will be a little bit of an offshoot here. We'll go down a little bit of a rabbit hole for a minute, but how many people do you see that either take the last instance of an issue or the loudest instance of an issue, and people will tend to make that an overarching conclusion? So I'll give you a perfect example. Okay, actually, let's use this one. So you're doing this promotion where you're doing let's say free kids meal, right? And you give people certificates, maybe as part of, this is something we did, we gave it as part of a player of the game program. So they would get a free kids meal if they gave one out per team, per game that they did. So it was a player of the game certificate. And then, so normally what happened is people would come in and then their family would order and the kid would get their free kids meal, and that's all great. But then sometime somebody comes in and they just redeem a free kids meal and don't buy anything else. And then you're mad, like, well, that's not how it was supposed to be used. They didn't do the thing. And so then people make a decision, well, I'm just going to stop doing that altogether, because or someone complains about something and they're like, well, that's the last time we're going to offer third party because there was a complaint. Or they take the most recent experience and people tend to assume that is an overarching theme when there's actually no data to support it. So do you see this kind of in your world? And I mean, I see it all the time, but I'm just curious for your perspective.
There's no question about it. I mean, the old story about, I hold the view of the last person I talked to, or I look everything through the prism of my last experience. And that's what using data does, is it depersonalizes it from a emotional standpoint, and it makes it more of a rational analysis about what's actually happening, rather than what I think is happening or what my gut is telling me is happening. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying you should get rid of your gut, right? Because we have to rely on our guts sometimes. But having a solid basis in the data will make you better decision makers about.
It's even an emotional thing, right? Because we could be mad and then we just say, no, and we're going to make this decision.
This is
and
too
we don't
much
really
of a
think it
pain.
through.
I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Can you always?
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
And so the example I often use with people, because there's a psychological principle now, I forget what it's called, and I'll have to look this up after, but the principle is basically that people think whatever their current state is will be their future state. So let's say, for example, when someone goes through a breakup or something like that and they are sad, they feel like they will be single and miserable forever, right? Or when people are happy and things are going great, you just assume that that is going to continue forever. The perfect example I give about this is the stock market, because what should you do? When should you buy if you're going to buy a stock? When it's low or when it's high. Yeah. Everyone knows that. When should you sell? When it's high. But what does the average person do? They do the opposite, because
exactly.
Yeah, it was yesterday, I think it was the S&P hit new highs, for example, and I bet there's people that are saying, man, it's at new highs, I better put more money in because it's going to go up even further, because we
Oracle went up by 36% the other day in one day.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are going,
I better get in there now. Yep. There's NVIDIA that's went up. And so it's Warren Buffett saying, it's like, be greedy when people are fearful and be fearful when people are greedy. So, but it's one of those things that we just assume that it's going to continue to go up. And so I challenge anyone listening to this right now, if the stock market is currently up when you hear this, as it is when we are filming this, just think, like, are you more likely to buy now because you have proof of it going up, even though logically it's actually the wrong thing to do? Right? Just think of that and then take that into your decision making. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road, is that most people in their busy periods in their business, because the restaurant business is seasonal, whether we like it or not, it just is, because there are different seasons and it just happens. It's a thing. So people, when it's busy and their bank account's up, what do? They're looser on spending. They don't look at the fine details as much as they do. So here's a perfect example. When you're busy and you have a wait, maybe your patio is full, do you focus as much on upselling as when you do when it is in the middle of winter and things are slow, you have far fewer customers, and you're watching your bank account go down, right? So in those two scenarios, when are you more likely to focus on your numbers and actually try and focus on upselling? And most people would focus on those things when it's lower. But here's the deal. When your sales are twice as high, guess what? That has a bigger impact on your annual profitability because you have twice as many customers, right?
Absolutely.
And
it's your opportunity is doubled or tripled at that time.
Yeah.
So
And a 1% overage in food cost or labor, we're like, oh, it's not a big deal because we're busy. Money's in the account. It's okay. And so it's at that point that, 1% means way more during a busy month than it does in a slow month. So
data
we should
analytics
actually
drives discipline. It drives discipline.
100%. So it's just understanding that and understanding our own psychological predisposition and how we feel then correlates to our actions. And what I just want everyone to understand is that we actually need to look at it from a logical and decision-making place. And it's something we say all the time. It's like, do your feelings drive your business, or does the data drive your business? And we need to let the data be the decision maker in our business. So anyway, we're speaking the same language here. So
let's talk a little bit about
go.
protecting your margins, right? Let's talk about protecting margins. So far, we've been talking about sales and promotions and those kinds of things. You know, one of the unfortunate things is that a lot of restaurants have silent partners, people that you don't know that are your partners, right? And kind of looking at things like tip ratios and cash versus card transactions. These are very important things to do. Yep. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sweethearting going on, right? My friend comes in, I give them an extra drink, or I have a check that has only soft drinks on it. But they didn't eat any food. Come on, how do we figure that out? And you can develop ratios if you have historic data. Then you know typically what the ratio is of the various menu items, entrees to drinks, entrees to desserts, those kinds of things. And you can look for anomalies. And, it's relatively easy to do even on a piece of, even an Excel or something like that. There are plenty of systems out there that can help do this from a software standpoint. And we talked about it a little bit earlier about historic volumes are going to be, and being able, therefore, to schedule the right labor so that you don't overpay. You're not, nobody wants to have more labor than you need, right? And the people don't want it. The servers don't want it. Everybody wants to have a remuneration for the time that they're spent doing. Nobody wants to be sitting around waiting for customers.
You want to also know something that's funny about that too, is that one of the clear indicators of things not getting done appropriately is when you're overstaffed. The weirdest thing, because everyone thinks, oh, if I staff more, if my labor percentage up, we're going to have better service, more things are going to get done. But 9 times out of 10, the opposite happens. And the reason why that happens is pretty simple. It's because people adapt their work to the amount of time that they have or the amount of work that is presented for them. So there's a perfect example. We had this one client where their opener came in, I think, 2 hours before open to get ready and do all this stuff. And we said, hey, I honestly don't think it's going to take 2 hours to get this place open. So they cut their time of that person opening to an hour. And guess what? Everything still got done. The person just worked faster, right? And it's the same thing when, say, if you have a shift where you only need 2 people in the kitchen and you schedule 3, well, guess what they're going to do? They're going to talk a little more and work a little less. And it's just one of those things, whereas if they were busy, they would all be working and they'd be working at a faster and higher level. Now, that's not to say that we want to go over and make it difficult for people or make it not a good work condition. But at the end of the day, there's a very, very clear thing that happens when the work slows down. Everyone says, whew, I can relax, I can take a break. And then all of a sudden, they take too much time doing that, and then it's the end of their shift, and like, oh man, well, I didn't get anything done. Oh, it's easy to say, it was too busy. Even I said this the other day. Funny story is one of my team members messaged me and said, hey, I thought you were going to do this thing. And my instant reaction was say, I messaged them back and I said, man, I've just been so busy. Like I just haven't even had time. Like, how dare you follow? I didn't actually say that, but I was like, in my brain was like, how dare you ask me like if I had time to do this? Meanwhile, I was sitting on the couch watching a TV show. So, and like in the middle of the afternoon, because I decided, hey, I'm just going to take a little break. But my instant thing is, I've been too busy. And then I was like, wait a second. No, I'm sitting on my ass right now. So, okay, let me do that thing. But it's our instant reaction. So if you ask an employee, hey, like, why didn't this get done? Oh, it was so busy. Then you look at their sales by hour and you're like, no, It wasn't. What are you talking about?
Exactly. If back to building that database and understanding when someone says something or you're trying to solve a problem and you can go to the data, you're going to have a clearer view of what you want to do. One 100%. Of the in terms of profit, protecting your margins, another area. I don't know how this works in your restaurants, but we see a lot of situations where shift managers are allowed to comp items for customers, right? And it's a very judgmental, it's a very subjective set of decision making. But even in a modest-sized organization, you may see differences between the shift manager that's on time, that's on duty during one period versus another in terms of the amount of comps that they're doing. Now, there could be other factors that are related to it. This gets even more a problem in a large number of locations. If you've got a large number of locations, now you can generate the data and try to, generally speaking, well, it's going to do 2 things. First of all, it may highlight where you've got a customer satisfaction problem, right? Where you've got some other fundamental issue in the business that's impacting the ability to serve that customer. So it's about customer experience, but it may just be about the judgment of the individual granting them. So that's another area where we often see a lot of margin leak where things are not consistent in terms of the way they're granted.
Yep. No, I can see that. And it's just, and as I'm listening to this, I'm like, and we all know this, but it's amazing how many little places there are for little leaks. And so I have so many people come to me and they see our ads and they see what we do and say, Andrew, our labor can't get any better than it can get. Like, how can we make more money than we're making? It's impossible to have a profit above 10% in a restaurant. And I'm just looking at it and going, well, I mean, our clients are consistently 15, 20, 25% net profit. So like, I know that it's possible and I see the world from a different view, but oftentimes a lot of these things are just like restaurants die by 1,000 cuts. They usually don't die by a big bullet hole. They die by 1,000 little cuts. Maybe someone comping a little too much, all of a sudden 1% over in food costs, maybe over scheduling by 15 hours in a week. Like all those things start to add up, and that will really hit your bottom line if you're not careful. And so as the average restaurant owner, like there's a lot that you need to keep your eye on in order to get it to the level that it needs to be. And that's where the systems come in. That's where the data analytics comes in. There's so many things that you have to keep your eye on. And I mean, we've listed a number of them today of just areas where any business could easily have a $10,000, $20,000 increase in their profitability just by focusing in on one of those things. But focusing in on all of them radically changes your business overall. So there's so many ways, but most restaurant operators are just stuck in the business and they don't pay attention to all the things that are right there happening around them.
That's right. Absolutely. And you know, I think some might say, well, how can I keep track of all these things? I don't know how I can possibly do that. So that's okay. Then don't try to do them all. Try to do a few. Do one or two, master them, and then move on to other areas. You know, from a customer experience standpoint, one of the other things that we see a lot, and we make a product that is for auditing and compliance, is just food safety and our operational effectiveness. Are the people doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are the refrigerators at the right temperature? And there's opportunities to automate some of this stuff, but the main point is just staying focused on the things that are going to make these little increases that you're talking about, which collectively add up to a lot.
Yep, 100%. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff there to unpack. So one thing is interesting, because I know we'll want to end off with either some actionables or some things like that. But one thing that what I'm curious about is when it comes to things like theft, because we think about it. I mean, I've been stolen from and stuff like that. I know that's one of the things that we spoke about briefly before we hit the big record button. But tell me a little bit more about what are things that you see or ways or places. Just give me a little more information on that, because it's not something we've talked about yet on this podcast. So I'm curious to get your take on it.
About theft?
Yeah, theft, like internal specifically.
Internal, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple of different ways this happens, right? I had a friend one time, a friend of a friend, that had us over for dinner and it served delicious steaks. It was like, wow, these things are delicious. Where'd you get them? Oh, I stole them from my company. Right? So what I'm talking about there is inventory management. So another source of data, knowing what's coming in the shipping, the receiving door, knowing what's going out based on your checks, just basic things like that. Looking at the deltas between what comes in the back door and goes out the front door is an important thing. So there's a huge opportunity for people to stock their larders and their refrigerators just by diverting food from the restaurant to your disadvantage. We talked a little bit about loyalty, but we didn't really talk about loyalty abuse, right? So you talked about the problem where where a server wasn't offering the sign up, right? Don't sign up. So the kind of the reverse of that is, well, I don't have a card, and so they take it themselves. Yeah, that's it. The employee themselves puts it on their own account, right? This again applies with the third-party delivery services. It gets even more complicated with those kinds of situations. So
yeah, I had that happen in one of my restaurants as well. There's a big catering order. And that happened, even though it was in their employment agreement. We specifically laid it out and covered it in training, but sure enough, it happened.
Another thing we look at all the time is tip ratios, ratio of tip to total check or tip to material. If you've got somebody who's consistently getting 30% tips, you have to question why. Are they that fantastic? Did they have that fantastic a tableside manner with their customers, or are those customers compensating for the fact that they were given free food or free drinks or whatever it might be? So those are three things that come right off the top. And it's unfortunate. I mean, when I got into this business, I was not that familiar with loss prevention, And I've had a view that everybody was very honest, but I've quickly realized that I'm a bit of a Pollyanna when that comes in, and that people will take advantage of situations if they are able to do it relatively easily. In fact, new employees are taught by the old employees kind of the how to game the system in many cases, and it's unfortunate. And some of it, you have to kind of live with. But again, back to the data. If you've got the data, you've got the facts, you can ask individuals about, why is their performance better or worse than others, and it at least makes them aware that you're doing it. And the reality is that if they're doing something as your silent partner, maybe they'll curtail that a little bit.
Yeah. No, and it's the strength of your systems, the strength of how much you're analyzing those things. Yeah, I mean, there's so many ways where dollars can leak out of your proverbial bucket. And anyway, we've got to make sure we mend as many of those as possible and watch the ones that we can't fully close. So that's just part of being in business.
And all 100%. Of these things apply whether you're operating a single location or multiple locations, right? It just gets much harder with multiple locations. And it's so funny. So I had one guy tell me once, he said, Andrew, running one is the same as running 10. And I just kind of laughed at him. But the day-to-day practices may be the same, right? But the level at which you need to pay attention to things and the level at which you need to have different systems in place to make sure the basics happen as they should, that's where the sophistication gets in. So it's not that the day-to-day operations have to change, but your sophistication in ensuring that happens is where it needs to change. So you ultimately need to change. And so these are things that you just have to monitor more and more as time goes on. So it becomes a much bigger thing because a small 0.5% here with 10 locations all of a sudden becomes big dollars. And so that's a lesson I had to learn as I went up and opened up more locations. Yeah, 1% all of a sudden with 4 locations is a lot of money seeping Absolutely
out the back door.
And the restaurants that win aren't necessarily the ones that have the flashiest menu or the nicest environment. In my opinion, they're the ones that use data to make better decisions. They're the ones that are going to grow faster because they're going to be able to identify their problem areas, and they're going to be able to identify their opportunities, the opportunities that they can exploit. And so, as you can tell, I'm a big fan of data. It's my living and my work, and I believe everybody has to. Well, not everybody, but I think if you want to be an effective operator, being a little bit of a data wonk is not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. So if someone wanted to find out more about you and how maybe what you do could be of benefit to them, how would they find out more about you, or where could they get in touch?
So my company's name is Agilence, and that is a contraction of Agile Intelligence. So Agilence. And we're at agilenceinc.com. And my name is Russ Hawkins again. And so it's rhawkins at agilenceinc.com. I'd love to hear from some of your subscribers.
Okay, perfect. Well, man, I appreciate you being here, and I love talking about data because this kind of is one of the topics that is integral to everything we do. One of the first things we do with clients is we're trying to figure out, okay, where is the biggest problem that we need to solve? Where is the biggest opportunity that we have to make things different? And the only way we can do that is by having accurate data, and this is just crucial to everything we do. So now I appreciate this conversation, and man, I hope people check you out, and maybe there's ways that they can leverage some more data in their own businesses, make better decisions, and ultimately make more money.
There we go. Thanks so much for having me on, Andrew. I appreciate it, and good luck to you and all of your listeners.
All right. Thank you.